seconds, maybe 10.
And here we go.
Here we go. Hi, everyone. It's Sarithkin from Ontier, and I'm here with the Murder of Dukes interview with His Grace Trelon, who was Prince of Ontier, twice Prince of the Sun, and 6 times King of Atenveldt. So welcome, Your Grace.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm excited to talk to you because I didn't realize you were from Ontier, which, you know, is where I am. So I usually start these with your origin story. So if you can tell us how, when, where you found the SCA, that would be great.
Well, at Christmas time in 1974, my mom owned a gift shop, and she was planning she was having a puppet show that she was going to do in the main window, and there were 2 people that were setting everything up, setting up a little booth, and getting ready for the puppet show, and they were in the SCA, and one was Viscount Melvin Lioness, but he wasn't a Viscount yet. We were all just schmucks back then, and the other was Baron Fellendrake the Blind.
Oh, wow.
And but I was being a nosy 15-year-old lad, and my mom's like, "Oh, don't mess with those people. They're sword fighters. They'll cut your head off." And I was hooked right there because I was reading Lord of the Rings and every other science fiction and fantasy book I could get my hands on. So I was hooked right there, and next thing I know, I'm talking to Sam's girlfriend, and Susan's telling me all about the SBA, and I paid my $9 then, and I got a membership, and my mom got a membership, and suddenly we had enough people in the Shire of Alicia to be a shire, to put in for shire status. So I think it was 5 people back then, but anyway, that's kind of how it happened.
Did you find the fighting right away?
Oh yeah, well, as soon as it quit raining enough where we could fight, I the first time I fought was like, I'd say March of '75. The first time I put armor on. But I was pretty little and skinny too. I might have weighed 100 pounds. I was about 5'5" maybe. I don't know, 5'4".
So was there loaner armor, or did you have to make your armor?
Oh no, it was all loaner armor. My first helmet, it was pretty crazy. Once the bug got me, I went and got 2 Freon cans and I riveted them together, and then I put a faceplate on it, and it was ugly as a homemade sin, but it worked for the most part anyway. And that was my first helmet that was mine.
Did you have someone that mentored? What? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, did you have someone that mentored you in armor making?
Well, not really. I mean, this back then there wasn't really anybody to do that. Robert Kinslayer started making armor. He was in our little shire, and he started making armor, and that's back then, and got rather famous for it. And he, but yeah, in fact, I bought one of his helmets too. It was probably my first, store-bought helmet. But mostly we just kind of winged it. I mean, everything back then was. That's if you had period armor, shoot, you might have had a great helmet or something. I mean, armor wasn't terribly sexy back in the mid-70s. I mean, it was getting better, and once it just exploded, because there were a couple guys that started making armor and selling it, and it just went gangbusters after that.
Yeah. So did you guys have a local fight practice that you went to?
Well, kind of, I mean, we'd have practice whenever it wasn't raining, because, in Eureka, well, it's the same up where you're at, it was always raining, and we didn't have an indoor place. So, we'd fight whenever we could, but it was, a couple times a month most of the time.
At some point, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
We'd go to events. I don't know, maybe half a dozen events a year, maybe. Because everything happens down in the Bay Area or in Sacramento. occasionally we would drive over to Reading and go to an event just whenever the captains had an event. But, occasionally I even, ran up on Tier at one point. I think I was still in high school when I ran up there one thing. But, mostly it was just, there weren't as many events, and, you kind of, the armor wasn't that. Once the armor started getting good, guys started hitting a lot harder too, because it felt different. You had crappy armor, somebody would zap you in the melon, and you knew it. Whereas when you had proper armor, they'd hit you in the head, and it was just kind of, well, yeah, you hit me, but so we had to really. That's when everybody started paying attention to, the conventions of what was good and what wasn't. And there was a little bit of consternation about that for a few years until everybody pretty well got it figured out.
So at what point did you start getting a little bit more serious about fighting?
Oh, shoot. I guess, well, I was always real fast. So, but really, once I got out of high school and I moved down to Phoenix after my first year of college. I was 19? Yeah, I just turned 19. And they had practice, a couple times a week down here because it's always sunny. And there were plenty of guys to fight. And I just, fought them. And then I went back up to West Kingdom because I got tired of being poor. And, my dad got me a job at the mill, so I was making good money and up in Cottage Grove, which in Oregon. But anyway, so I got knighted right before that. Before I came up, I got knighted, and so it was just, I don't know. I never really expected. I always wanted to get knighted, but I never really expected it. When it happened, it was a big surprise.
Did you swear to someone down in Atenveldt?
No, I was squire to Melgwin. And then he gave me the rough boot when I got too good and started, being too much competition for him. But, he used to give me a hard time about it. But, there were four of us it was Sam and myself and Robert Kinslayer and Ragnar of the Icy Waste. And we just basically all beat the daylights out of each other, and we all got knighted within about a year or so of each other. Sam got knighted, then I got knighted, then Rob Mackenzie got knighted, and then Ragnar got knighted. So it was just, we just all, we all kind of grew up together. We were all late teens, early 20s together, and that's, we kind of pulled each other up.
Did you get knighted in Ontario or down in Atenveldt?
I got knighted in the West.
In the West.
By Steve Andrew. Yeah, it's like I got knighted, me and Ragnar got knighted at the same event. I got knighted Saturday night, he got knighted Sunday morning.
That's cool.
And we were the only two guys that McHenry ever knighted. So I think his legacy was okay. We did okay, especially Ragnar.
Well, yeah, I think you both did more than okay. So you said your knighting was a surprise. Why was it a surprise to you?
I just, I just didn't expect it. I mean, you always hope, of course, but I remember Sam and Bidan. They pulled me aside. They were like, hey, we got this idea. We're going to do this abduction. And so we're at Big Tree, and they pulled me off to the side. And so, I'm going back there, fat, dumb, and happy, thinking, okay, this will be fun, sure. And so I turn around, and Sam's looking at me. He's getting all blubbery, and I'm just like, what? And he's like, oh, they're going to knight you. And I was like, what? So I was, I was really surprised, and shoot, they had to borrow a white tunic for me because I had a blue tunic. So they borrowed one from somebody. I don't even remember where it came from, but yeah, I had a it's funny because when I got married, I had a pair of 501 Levi's on, a white tunic, and I made some Indian moccasins out of a book I found called the Indian Howl book. And those were my my little moccasins, and I just remember I was starstruck. I hated being out in front of court and everything. It just the only other time I'd gone up in front of court was when I got my LA, and I was just about half terrified being in front of a bunch of people. And so they hauled me up there, and it's dark, and I'm just kind of about half scared and not sure what's going to happen, and but it all worked out all right.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So were you fighting in crowns and coronets back then?
Oh yeah, we were. In fact, I fought in a crown in '75. I was still 15, and they if you were big enough to take the ass whooping, you were allowed to fight essentially. I think they kind of made something about you had to be over 14 or something, but that was long ago and far away. But yeah, I think I fought one in '75. I think it was the March Crown. And, I went out there and got fed my lunch just like every other newbie, but, it was a good time. But, it's kind of fast and furious when you're a lad, because, the good guys walk out there and just beat the daylight out of you.
Did you have a mentor in your fighting that you modeled your style after?
Well, I stole from everybody. Because it was like I was, now don't get me, Duke Paul was my hero. I heard about, the couple people around the SBA, and then I heard about Duke Paul with Bellatrix. I swear to God, if I'd have, when I was 16 years old, if they'd had a poster of him, he'd have been right up on the wall next to my Lord of the Rings and, Aragorn and all these, Gandalf and all them guys, Star Wars, all that. They would have been Duke Paul with Bellatrix up there. With those 3 swords, straight down his chest. Oh man, because he was the cat of PJs, let me tell you. And first time I was in a melee, I think I was about 16, and Larry's like, come on out, kid, you'll have a good time. And I'm like, I've never done a melee before. And he's like, come on, it'll be a good time. So I go out there, and, I make it through the first little tussle, and I look around, and I see where my buddy Biden, he got smacked in the leg and he's down on his knees. So I figured, well, shoot, I better go over there and help him, and I go over there and I help, I smacked some guy. Shoot, I didn't know he was going to wait around the next day, but he wasn't paying attention to me. So I was good cheap. I was going to hit him, But anyway, so one thing leads to another, and I look around and like I'm still alive, and Bellatrix over there going, hey kid, come here. And he's like, look, and so I go over there, and there's like 6 of the other guys left, and it's just me and him. You see that one guy over there, and he's pointing at Henrik Hahn, and Henrik's probably one of the first. If he's not the first Super Duke, he's one of the first, and I knew enough to know who he was. I'm like, oh, geez, because you see him, and like, yeah, just keep him busy, just go over there and kind of mess with him, and I'll see if I can, deal with these other guys. So I go over there and I'm kind of, fainting at him and trying not to get too close. I don't want him to beat the bejesus out of me. So I kind of circle around him and I run off. And so in the meantime, Bellatrix walks in there and legs like 4 of them. He just ate their lunch. And so I come back and he says, okay, you take great. He goes, all right, I want you to do it again. So I go in there again, and of course, this time Henrik catches me, beats the hell out of me. And so, but by that point, Paul had everything in order, so he put the beat down on the bad guys, and he won the melee. But it was pretty fun one. So I was in hog heaven. Here's my superhero, and I'm out there in battle with him, and it was awesome. When you're a lad, and here you are. It's like, geez, can you imagine playing football and you get to go out there and play with, Joe Montana or anybody else, you just look at the guys that are good now, it was just like, oh, the angels sang, and that was something else, let me tell you.
Did you hit him up for teaching or anything?
every chance I got, I most of the time it's funny too, that because me and Ragnar the IC Waste, Paul didn't like court much. Whenever we were at one of the events down at Big Trees and it was court, he'd like if he still had his gear on, he'd be like, come on, let's go do some pickups. And so, I remember being, a lad, we'd go out there and we'd walk back, and just like, blah, 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 and he didn't have a mark on him, we're limping back all pieces. And I remember the last time I just got knighted and Ragnar was about to get knighted, and we're coming back and we're limping like we always do, like, oh, geez, oh, man, and it's like, your butt hurts, your head, arm hurts, hit side, anyway, everything hurts. And we look over at Paul, and he's like, oh, geez, and he's hurting too. Both me and Doc looked at each other like, yes! Yes! It was awesome.
That is awesome. So did you know back then that you wanted to be Duke?
No, I never cared about any of that stuff. I wanted to be a knight. I always thought that sharp, but, and when I started was pretty early on, because I was 19 when I became Prince of Ontario. And it was just, shoot, I was about ready to abdicate before I even got, coroneted. It's just kind of scary getting up there in front of everybody. And anyway, but I had no idea.
Well, tell me about that. Tell me, you were scared of reigning, so you thought about abdicating before you went up, or?
Oh yeah. When I was going up because I got my coroneting, whatever you want to call it, investiture happened in British Columbia, and so as I'm driving up there, I remember kind of thinking like, man, do I really want to do this? Is this fun? Do you have a good time? It's like suddenly you got, I've had, offices in the SCA, but I've never had a job, so to speak. And so suddenly it's like, you're the guy in charge of the fund. You're giving out the chookies. So I was just kind of, I don't know, it was just kind of scary. I got through it, and I was lucky. Tamsin was there, so she's like, oh, come on, don't be stupid, So it all worked out.
And did you reign with a friend?
Pardon me?
Who did you reign with?
Tamsin and the Raven Tresses.
Okay. And so tell me about reigning your first principality reign. Like, was it what you expected? Was it harder?
Well, I didn't expect anything, so it was just kind of it was what it was, and fortunately, my seneschal realized I was 19 and foolish, and so, he took good care of me, a guy named Ludwig von Lovinghouse. And, I was buddies with Steingrim, so, he kept me in the straight and narrow for the most part, But, we were just out, winging it, having a good time. And, they used to call me the punk prince. I thought that was pretty funny. They wanted to make me a switchblade for tan sword. We could never work out the logistics of it. But it was a lot of fun, once I kind of figured out, it's like, oh, okay, so we get out the candy. Well, it was a good time. It was always nice seeing over all the years, my favorite award to give was always the Award of Arms, just because it was, everybody was the first thing they got. They were, excited and happy and scared all at the same time. And it was just, it was that bit of magic. And that's, that's what you were in it for, was, once I realized later on that it was, we do this for the moment. It's just that little, where you get that little bit of magic. And especially, back in the early days, it's like, our costumes weren't that great. It's like you went back to camp was a pop can or a dome can or whatever. It wasn't these magnificent, Regent, whatever, bell wedge, some canvas can, unless you made one yourself. There wasn't anybody making them, and now it's like you look at the gear that the guys have, and they start out with nice, better armor than we could have hoped for. I mean, geez, like I said, I was in a 3-ounce pound of carpet. Yeah, and oh, geez, I remember being in high school and going to gym class. It was awesome. You know, and I'm dressing down for gym, and the coach is kind of walking through the locker room, and he looks down, and I'm like, my leg is all technicolor from getting the hell beat out of it, and so is my side. You know, I've been down at the Bay Area at a tournament, and I'm all beat to pieces. You know, and the coach comes in and he goes, "So son, everything okay at home?" I'm like, "Sure, coach. What are you talking about?" "Jesus, boy, look at you. You got bruises all over you." I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's from martial arts, sir." He's like, "Oh," and he was so relieved, you know, that I got my ass kicked in a good way, not in a bad way.
Right.
But it was funny.
So you moved back to Arizona like shortly after you reigned in Ontario, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like I saw the writing on the wall. They were already talking about the lumber, because I was working in the lumber mill. And you could see where they were just going to, you know, everything was going to be robots. And, you know, they were, instead of having, 500 people working at the mill, it was going to be 50 kind of a deal. And so I was just kind of like, you know, I'd better go to college. Because, you know, and that was the other thing is I kind of went, you know, I'm too smart to work this hard to make a living. Because I was working on the planer chain. And you know, I was getting cysts in my wrist and my back was hurting. And I look around and I look at these guys that are like, you know, 40, 50 years old and they look like death warmed over. And I'm like, oh no, not this guy. I'm going to go to college and get a real job. At least, and so that's what I did.
And when you went back down there, it looks to me when I look at your OP entry that you immediately won the Principality of the Sun Cornet tournament. Is that right?
Pretty much. I mean, it was a little bit after that, but yeah, I won that, and that was entertaining too. It was, you know, because I was kind of I came out of the blue on them. They weren't sure what to do with me, but that was fun too.
How was reigning in the Sun different than reigning in Ontario, if at all?
Well, you know, the crown at that point in time was a lot more hands-on, shall we say? And whereas, you know, being Prince of Ontario, I was far enough away where, you know, we just did what we wanted to do essentially, and you know, the kingdom really, you know, West Kingdom didn't fool with us a whole lot, but being Prince of the Sun, you know, you had the whole, back then, I think the Kingdom of Atenveldt was like 9 states, I believe. And so, I mean, there was a whole lot of other stuff going on. And I was not in the political elite at that point, shall we say. And so, you know, they were trying to tell me how it was done, and I knew how it was done, and they didn't appreciate me telling them that I knew, but you know, so we worked it out.
So
you know, and
go ahead.
It was always fun because, you know, I mean, I read Machiavelli when I was Prince of Ontario, and I left it sitting by the throne, just so, you know, because I understood that, you know, like you get more than 2-3 people together, you got politics going on, and so I never really liked it, but I wanted to know what to do and what it was about. So, you know, I forget who it was, but somebody recommended I read Machiavelli for politics. So I was like, oh, okay. So I read it, and I was like, oh, this guy's pretty brutal. But, you know, he was playing, you know, for all the marbles. So anyway, it was always a good thing to where, you know, you just leave that sitting there, and people would look at it and go, did you read the Prince? And it's like, yeah, I read the Prince. And you just see it go, ah, great. But you know, it was kind of a little bit of extra armor there because they knew that you knew, so to speak. You know, so they, you know, I just wanted them to leave me alone and, you know, have everybody have a good time. Let's go out and play a little boom bash and, you know, have a little costume cocktail party at the end there, and you know, call it a day.
Were you a sword and shield fighter at the beginning?
Almost primarily, yeah. I didn't start fighting with spears until, I don't know, later. You know, I realized after, first time I won Crown, I knew that, if I wanted to, I could probably win it again. And I was just kind of like, well, I got to find something that's going to really tweak my interest. So I started looking into warfare. Because, warfare, it's always different. It depends on the size of the unit that you got. It depends on where you're at. Not only do you have to outsmart one guy, you got to outsmart all his buddies, too. Because, once it says go, there's no telling what's going to happen in a battle. And I'd always, like, the Shastons introduced me to all these Avalon Hill war games. Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader, Tactics 1 and then 2, and anyway, all that kind of stuff. And, I think I even bought Alexander the Great at one point. But, I loved all these war games, and it was just, brain candy. And so I started fiddling with it, and then it's like, you get a little bit up in the food chain in the SDA, and they'll let you, command a unit or something. So it's kind of like, live chess. We had the live chess games, but that wasn't anything like, give me 20, 30 guys and let me roll around somebody's flank and, jump on them and beat the daylights out of them. And so I just really got, that was my prime interest at that point, and so I was just, I read everything I get my hands on, to be honest. And it was, that's why I brought this book out here. One of my buddies gave me this book here, Strategicon by Maurice. And
what is it?
It's called Strategicon by Maurice Strategicon, but it was written by the Emperor Maurice. I think it was in the 560s, 525. Anyway, it was a Byzantine handbook on their military and how they built their military. And it was everything from how to pick people, how, and like one of the things they said is don't take the city guys because, they're soft and they're used to living in the city, and having an easy life, and what they said is go get a bunch of farm boys that are used to working hard and, they won't cry so much about, no bright lights in big cities, and then they were talking about how the units, form themselves. And, my favorite quote out of there was a good Byzantine general should never say, I did not expect that. So, you always wanted to think out, what was going on. So in any case, that was just, I ate it up with a spoon. Some people when they doodle, they draw pictures, and I would sit there and doodle formation. I just, you name it, on a sticky note, piece of paper, or whatever. I'd be, what if they did that? What if they did that? And what if you sent it just a column this way? Or what if you think here? And that was just how my brain worked, and I, thought that I just ate it up, and most of my library is, I'll bet you a third of it is full of warfare books of, pretty much everything from ancients all the way up to relatively modern. I didn't really pay too much attention to anything new, but I really liked Pat because he was, a wild man.
So the Phoenix practice is pretty famous for how huge it was back in the day and how you guys would do war tactics and stuff. Did you take some of your passion for war strategy, and implement it there?
Oh yeah, that was why we had a lot of success in our battles. It was because we'd have 100 guys out there on Wednesday night, and I'd take 50 of them, and Mark Newman is. Well, now he's Duke Mark von Neumann. But anyway, yeah, me and Mark, we'd split up, and, he'd take half and I'd take half. And, we'd run our various, formations out of it. We basically figured out how to run and gun. We set up our systems and our little, like most of the time I'd run out of a 3-man team, and then you had a 7-man squad, and then a 20-man company, 25. But, so you just had, everybody knew how to work together, and everybody knew, what their job was. So even when, you got chewed up a little bit, you could still roll in with somebody else, and you knew your job. You knew the glaive guy knew what he was supposed to do. You knew the spear guy knew what his job was. No matter what, you'd all work together. And mostly you just wanted to build up enough confidence and endurance in your troopies, because a lot of these guys, you go to the wars and the only time they ever put their armor on is at the war. So now you've got, because I had about 100 guys here, and there's probably another 40, 50 guys in Tucson out of the Lance Cadets. And so we always had a good core group to where, if we could just, if nothing else, we could, if the rest of the Army could buy time and we could go, hammer them. But, everybody else jumped in too, and you go out of town and you talk to them and you show them how you trained. And, because like we do a lot of things, like I used to stick them in a box, which is, about as wide as your living room. And, we used it for bitch fighting, you have to teach them how to push. You have to teach them how to take a charge or how to counter charge, or how, even in the middle of a battle, you don't realize it, but, these guys are flanking, on the inside, in the middle of a unit. All you got to do is punch a column in there, and even when it's 20 guys, you put a 3 or 5 man line in the middle of it, it just messes everything up, and now suddenly your opponent's having to worry about it, and now and then they just collapse because they don't know whether they should deal with that or if they should deal with the guy in front of them, and while they're in that moment of decision, somebody hits them, which was was kind of my goal in the first place. But it like I said, my whole thing is I just love the warfare.
Yeah. So Duke Johann wants to know if you liked killing Kaidans or Outlanders better.
Oh, I think it was the Kaidans, really. The Outlanders, it was kind of, whenever we brawl with them, it was always kind of like, you're fighting your brother or something, It's like, and it's, you're going to end up bloody either way. But with the Kaidans, they were from over there, so it was like, they weren't in our town, So it was, like I say, it was like, yeah, Kaidans.
And did you enjoy teaching?
Pardon me?
Did you enjoy teaching?
Oh, yeah. And, it's like I seem to have a bit of a knack for it, which made it better. Because you have to figure out the guy again, some guys you could show them, and some guys you can tell them, and some guys it's almost like you got to just, I don't know, pain has to be their teacher. It's the only way I can put it. Like, so it really depends on the guy, and like that. I always loved it when I got guys that had studied, other styles prior to what we're doing, because then it'd be, I could explain to them on something that they have already understood. It's like, okay, I want you to throw like, this. It's kind of like a hammer fist. I'm trying to teach you how to throw flat snap. I said, kind of like a hammer fist, and you're going to throw it. You're going to keep your elbow in. You're gonna extend it full, and you can see it go, oh, okay, and it was real rewarding when you could see them actually, because you see the light bulb go off of their head. It sounds like cartoons, but you see them like, boop, and you're like, okay, he gets it now, and that was that gotcha moment that I was always looking for when I was training somebody.
Are there any? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, are there any particular teaching moments or battles that stand out in your mind?
They were all pretty glorious. I got to admit, it's hard just to pick one, because at that moment, that's the best one ever. And then you go into another one, and you look around and you've defeated your opponent, and everything, you're all jacked up, and all the boys are all just like, rah rah rah, and it's that emotion, and once again, you're living for that moment, and that's the thing is, we're in it for the moment. You know, because that's all you ever really, you know, especially once you get, you know, after a while, that's all you get. You know, you get little moments where it's magic and it's almost like it's real, and you know. But I mean, it's wonderful in the respect that, you know, I spent, you know, 30, 40 years in, you know, engaging in warfare, and I had never picked up a dead boy. You know, I mean, we won or we lost, but I never picked up a dead boy. I never took anybody's life. You know, so it's like, and I remember talking to the men that had killed in battle, you know, for real, had been in Vietnam or been in the Gulf War. And I didn't lose that little bit of my soul that they did, because you could see, you know, if you know what to look for, you can see where these boys have, you know, they went to war, and that boy didn't come home. The man that came home was not the one that left. You know, and so I feel very fortunate that, you know, I got to play Army with, well, shoot, I mean, the biggest Army I ever got to command was at Atenveldt one year, and you know, it had to be close to 1,000 guys. You know, and it was just, I couldn't believe it. You know, you're looking out there, and you know, I got essentially I got hired by the East, or not the East, but the Middle. And, you know, the East was all set up in front of me in their checkerboard, and I'd seen this formation before, and I was just like, oh, man, this is going to be rough on them. You know, and I set up in I always fought out of 5 columns, and I set you know, the mid-realm up in those 5 columns and let them loose. And, I mean, they were eating their lunch, you know, and I'm standing in the back with the king of the middle, and he's got his king's guard, and I see about 30, maybe 20, 30 two-checks rolling around one flank, and I looked and I said, if you want your guys to get any fighting in, you better let them loose on those two-checks over there, because otherwise this battle's over. And so, you know, he let them loose. I shook his hand, told him congratulations for his victory in the battle, and I think I went to camp and had a few beers, you know, to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of the coolest things about what we do is that we get to really inflict blunt force trauma on each other without hurting each other, you know, and then have beers at the end of the day. So not many other things you can do like that and really not have some serious injuries.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of serious injuries out there, you know. I mean, you'll see these poor fellas where, you know, they stepped funny and, you know, their knee went sideways, or, you know, some guy, you know, some big fellow with a blade knocked his spine out their hind end, and now they got a tail or whatever. But, you know, I mean, there's plenty of injuries. You know, the enemy has been attrited before, for real. But, you know, everybody has to realize that, you know, Jim Bob over there has to go to work on Monday. So, you know, I mean, if he really wants to volunteer and be a jerk about it, you know, things can happen, but you really don't want to go there.
So I think we might be skipping a lot, but since we're talking about teaching, Casca asked if you could tell any Duke U stories. So I think that's teaching. Is Duke U teaching?
Yeah. Well, Duke U was my version. It was my practice in my backyard, and which Casca used to come to, and man, there were about 4 of us that were pretty, you know, serious about it, and we all got in really good shape, and it was all just a matter of, like, you know, I got a copy of the Headless House training manual, and it was William McKinnon, Steve McKinnon, and William the Lucky. It was their manual on how to train fighters, and I'd gotten one when I was a lad, and so I basically used that as my premise. And I would, you know, we would do attack defense drills. You know, we'd work on particular shots. You know, we'd do bear pits, and you know, and if you still had something left after that, then yeah, sure, you could go do singles with everybody, but you know, if you like, you stood in the pit, you had to fight everybody. It was a practice. Win, lose, or draw. And with the attack defense drill, it was the same kind of thing. It started out where it was 30 seconds, where you were on defense for 30 seconds and offense for 30 seconds. And when you're on defense, you only get three hits to hit back. So, if the guy gets really sloppy, you can just bomb him into next week. But, what you do is, and as it went on, we got up to a couple of minutes a pop there. So it's just, it was fighting tournaments was easy. The worst part was going through the training. And it was always like the worst part I ever had out because the Duke U was with Joel Morgan. He got done being king of Ontario, a year ago, maybe?
Yeah, he stepped down last January.
Yeah, him and Costa were fighting in the Crown List, and it was just killing me because here's two of my boys. I love them, and they're very evenly, all by the time we got done, they were all very evenly matched, and it was just tough because you're watching your boys out there, brother against brother kind of thing. You're like, oh man, it was just tough, watching them fight.
I'm going to share screen for a second, and we're going to look at some pictures. Let me see if I can get this.
Okay.
All right. Can you see that?
Oh man, yep, yeah, that was down in Kaid, and that's me, and on the left, and then the diagram, and I think the guy in the gold is William Houghton. I have to put my glasses on to see the rest of them. Yeah. I think that guy up there on the left.
Yeah, I think Guy's in there too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was a good war. That was probably back in 79, 80, probably 80.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, that was the first silver dollar tournament. We took a break in the middle of the finals. Radnor won the first fight, and I won the second fight. And man, it was we were both pretty well gassed, so we took a little break there for a minute before we went down and had the last fight. And of course, Radnor won, the jerk.
I don't know how tall the guy is that's walking between you, but you guys make him look very tiny.
Dave is about, what was he? Was he 5'2", 5 foot, something like that. It's funny. I remember his first war. We went. It was one of the. Wasn't Australia yet. It was still. What they call it, like Great Desert. And we're out, and he was all of 16, and he was still that big when he was 16 too. But he had followed me into the middle of the battle, and it was, somebody came in behind me, and they didn't even see him. He turned around and just chopped him right in the middle of the chest with a battle axe. And it was just funny because we were giving hell about being a dwarf anyway. And then he goes and chops some dude with the axe in the middle of the chest.
Let's see. Oh, why is it not working? There we go.
Ah, long ago, far away. Yep.
Yeah. So do you remember what this is, or?
I'm trying to remember here. I think this was. Oh shoot! Let me check the crown.
I think that's Thorfinn, right?
Oh yeah, it's Thorfinn and Sarah. But I'm just trying to remember what was going on. I don't remember if they were stepping up or if I was stepping up. But it was some sort of, somebody was getting invested.
Okay. I just thought it was a cool picture. Let's see.
That was my modus operandi. The 8-belt shot glass, and Oh God, I was doing there. I didn't even have a beard yet, so I couldn't grow a beard till I was about 27, 28. I always had patches on the sides here, so but that's night and that was the nighting. Well, it was I basically started Duke Sean of Tarragon. I started his nighting because we were trying to figure out how we're going to night him because Brian wanted to night him, but he's like, oh man, I can't night my own squire. I'm like, why not? He's like, well, he's my squire. And I kind of went through all that rigmarole, but I said, look, I tell you what, the kid's good. So what we'll do is I'll start it, and Brian was stepping up that day, and I stepping down. I said, so I'll start it, and you can finish it tomorrow morning. So that way, and that's how it worked out.
It's very cool.
And, Sean kind of turned out to be a pretty decent fighter, I guess you could say.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, he's only been king I don't know how many times now.
And he's, continued the legacy of teaching, which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, you should have heard him squall, though. I mean, because, he was he was 16 or 17 when he got knighted. And they were like, oh, you can't do that. And, they were all, a lot of people were having a fit about it. And it was like, look, man, you find the kid. He'll beat you, too. Because he was tall and skinny, but he was fast and tricky. Shoot, Brian taught him, so, he was tricky, though. But, now that's Australia a couple of years ago. Well, looks like Adamar was king there. So, yeah, that was 2-3 years ago. But, yeah, we were all well lubricated, shall we say, at that point. Yeah, here's all the cricketing. I think this was Cox's coronation, if I remember correctly.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I think that's my last picture, but let me.
Made it.
So we haven't talked about you reigning in Atenveldt at all. You and Brian traded the crown back and forth quite a bit for a 5 or 6 year period there. Can you kind of tell me about that? And was there like a rivalry, or were you guys trying to shape policy, or what was going on there?
No, we won when we wanted to. I won because I wanted to be general at the war.
Okay.
And Brian won because he loved being king. I never really liked, like I said, I didn't really like being king a whole lot. It was kind of a pain, but, and now we were always good buddies. But, yeah, it was, and this story seems to have grown in the telling, because really it was only, I think it was a couple of times. I mean, it might have been over the course of a couple of years, but I mean, the way everybody makes it sound like in the 80s and 90s that it was either Brian or me, and, that just wasn't the way it was, I mean, there were a few other guys that snuck in here and there, but, we could and would win if we wanted to. If there was something going on that we wanted to do, if there was something going on as far as the politics or whatever that we wanted to take care of, we do it. And you watch you guys do it now. You look at the movers and shakers, and there's always a couple guys in every kingdom that, they you're not going to beat them. They're either going to win this time or they're going to win next time. And, that's just kind of how we were.
Besides giving out AOAs, what was the other part of reigning that you really liked? And being commander at wars?
It was nice going to other places and meeting other people. One of the funny things, I remember one time I was over in the Outlands, and it's like some people come over and they go, you got to see this. And I'm like, what? And they take me over, and it's like, they have like some little ante rooms and where they had, what do they call it? It's their big event in December. I had a brain fart on it. But anyway, it was midwinter. I was at Midwinter, and we'd always go over there trying to get the Outlands to come and we'd try and recruit them, and come on over and fight with us and all this kind of stuff, and But anyway, I go in the back, and so I go in the back, and here's these kids, and they're playing Monster, and they one kid's running around, rah rah rah, and then so the other kids, they run and they wheel, a bunch of I have a dozen kids playing this game, and they run into this room, and the kid runs and he opens the door, and all the kids go, run, it's Trelon! And I was like, oh my God, I'm a monster. This is awesome.
That is really cool. So how many of your squires have been knighted, and how many of them are dukes?
Oh, geez. Many?
Too many to count?
It's funny because I wondered if you guys had asked this question, and I was trying to figure it out. Yeah, there's a bunch, and let me see. Well, I have in radiation because I think there were about 4 of them were radiates that got knighted, and 2 of them are dukes. I've got here in Arizona. Eric is a count, Mark is a duke. I already said Adam. And then I've got Seth, I've got Christopher Montoya. Christopher Montoya is a Viscount. He was Prince of the Sun. And like I said, there's more, and I know I'm missing them. Recently I've got 2 of my guys, Sean Glennie, he and Ibn. He's got a very long Arabic name, but we just call him Ibn. He got recently knighted. And that's out of my guys now. I got one more lad in the hunt here, but they always seem to go in crops, which I always thought was kind of interesting because you'd have a half a dozen lads for a while, and then they'd all do their thing, and then you'd kind of fizzle out for a while, and then you'd have a few more, and then that's just kind of. But it's been a fair amount. I gotta say.
Are you still actively taking squires and teaching?
Before COVID happened, I was doing okay, but here lately, I haven't put on armor and found since Australia.
Wow.
Well, I take that back. There were a couple of years right after Australia where I went to practice and did a little, played a little boom bash, but that's about it. But yeah, it's like the whole thing. You don't want to quit. I forgot to mention Jono too. Yeah. One of my, it's like half these guys end up being my surrogate children. I never had children, so I just kind of, these are my boys. Yeah.
It's your family, right?
Yeah, it really is.
So,
and
I'm supposed to ask you what book you have all your squires read.
Oh, well, I haven't read a bunch. I give them a list.
Oh, really?
And whether they read it or not, it's a whole other thing. I think the only one who ever read all the books was Johnny, Sean Glennie. But I always want them to read Strategicon. I want them to read the Book of 5 Rings. I want them to read the Prince. And it's you got to be well rounded. And I forget what else I did. I give them a bunch of books. But that's a lot of it, though. You've gotta teach them all of it. They can't just go out there and be a good fighter. You gotta be a politician. You gotta be a commander. You gotta be a well-rounded gentleman.
Your wife is hinting to me that there's a book where you tell them to pick a knight to model their character after.
Oh, that's true too. I forgot all about that. I always have them read King Arthur. And it's like, pick a night to model yourself after. And I said, don't pick Modred, because if you pick Modred, I'm going to kick you out. I'm not going to fool with that. But, and it was always interesting to see which one they picked, you know. So most of the time, you know, it was just always funny to see who they picked.
Are there any traditions in Atenveldt that are a result of something that you instituted?
Oh God! I mean, we started a Hope of the Sun, I believe, back when I was Prince. But I don't. I can't really think of any off the top.
Okay.
I got the Herald that.
All right. Well, I've been talking to you for an hour, and I feel like I haven't really scratched the surface much on your reigns. But is there a topic you wanted to talk about that I haven't touched on?
Geez, I don't know. I mean, I was kind of about half reticent to do this because I've never been much of a, you know, cyber SBA person. It just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. But, you know, so I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this. But it's I don't know, you know.
The thing that's been. Go ahead.
I worry about our group getting old, you know, because it was like, I remember, you know, when I was coming up, you know, everybody, the old guys were 30, you know, and then I was 30 and the old guys were 40, or, you know, and now it's like, you know, you go to an event, you look around and, you know, there's a lot of gray-headed people in there, you know, and it's just like, you know, that which used to be fun is now embarrassing. So, you know, and people, you know, they've taken themselves way too seriously. And come on now, you know, we're out here to have a good time. This is supposed to be fun.
How do you think we can inject more fun into it and less seriousness?
Yeah, you know, I don't know if it's become so important to a lot of people that, you know, it makes having fun harder for them. But, you know, you gotta just have fun, you know, and I don't know, you know, it used to be, you know, you were coming to a costume cocktail party, and now It's kind of, you know, oh, let's go have court for 3 hours. But, you know, it's like, I don't know. That's why I always like the wars, because, you know, they were always a blast. You know, you could go out and run around with your buddies all day and, you know, commit acts of heroism and, you know, save somebody or get saved by them, or, you know, you could, you know, pull off you know, you could snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, and, you know, and it was all, you know, the funnest part was, you know, all the stuff you read in the history books worked. You know, I can remember being accused of being a cheater one time. You know, they're like, you cheated. You know, like, why? You know, because I just beat the slop out of, you know, somebody in a battle at one point. And I'm like, why? You know, because I read a book? Because I did what the ancients did? You know? So, but it was, like I said, I was always a bookworm. I always had, you know, if you knew me in high school, I was always sitting there reading a book. I always had my nose in a book. And, you know, you read these things, especially when you can play these board games where you take your little, you know, piece of cardboard, you move your little guys around, and then you get to go do it with real people. That was just it, you know.
I being prepared does not equal cheating, but it's sort of my hope that we can take some of this cyber SCA and sort of channel some of the admin stuff into it so that we can have more fun at events and not spend so much time doing administrative stuff like our crown events are meeting after meeting after meeting. And it's my hope that maybe we can learn from this time when we're not going to events that a lot of this stuff doesn't have to happen in person and we can just have fun.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be a good change, because I'm with you. I can remember being on the throne, and, you go to that. It's like, well, I'm going to meet with the Laurels, Pelicans, and the Knights, and then we got to discuss, our candidates. We've got to do all this stuff, and before you couldn't. It was not in a letter. It was not online. You had to do it in person, because otherwise it was just rumor or whatever, and people didn't want to write anything down because then you could hold their feet to the fire. So. I could see where you could do a lot of administrative stuff online, which would help a lot, because then you could actually go to the event and have a good time. And, all the royals and all the officers could, all the peers could actually go to the event and have a good time. I mean, all you have to do is show up and, okay, let's knight, so-and-so. Let's give so-and-so their pal, or, so-and-so their laurel. Off you go.
Yeah.
And it would cut down on all the meetings, and also too, it's like, I'm sure you've been in some of these meetings too, where they can get a little heated at times, depending on the situation.
And that can suck the fun out of afterwards when people aren't happy with each other. Anyway, I really appreciate that you stepped out of your comfort zone and you did this interview with me, because it's been so valuable to get some of these stories and some of the stories that you've told tonight to a wider audience. And it's kind of been magical for me to learn the history of things. And I just really appreciate you sharing that with all of us. So thank you for stepping outside your comfort zone.
It's all good.
Okay. Do you want to look at your sword? Did you bring your sword?
I did. I did bring the sword. But, it's like, just, I think you told me that you wanted to know how I built them.
Yeah.
And it just kind of depends, because like for like a turning stick, I just put strapping tape on the end or on the edge enough so it wouldn't get too chewed up. I always really taped up the tick though, with a lot of strapping tape, just because I hit with the last 6 inches of my stick a lot, and I pulse them out pretty quick. So I always tape them up real good, and then I didn't put much for a back edge on it, and off the edge, you wanted it to be, it was kind of depending on who you were fighting and what, where you were fighting, all depended on the weight of the stick. Because, if you get some guys like in Meridian, you didn't have to bomb those guys. All you had to do is get it there. But then you go some other places where you really got to hit a guy, and that's fine too. I always enjoyed that too. But so you make a little heavier stick for those fellas, because you just want to give them you're granting their wish. They're wishing for a better ass whooping, and you got to give it to them. That's the deal. So off you go. But now, as far as my practice sword, it's kind of around here somewhere. Oh, there it is. I've got one of these. It's a solid plastic stick, but you have to cut them a little shorter because the density is different. But all you do is just tape. You don't have to put it. You put the tape on for decoration.
Right.
But these things are great, because you can practice forever. I mean, I've had this one for several years now, and you don't go through your hands. And it's a great melee stick because it's nice. It's a little heavier, and but it hits you like in a melee. You've got all kinds of stuff flying around and dinking you. And, you don't know what's going on unless somebody smashes you. So, with one of these, even with a single hand sword, you can hit them pretty solid, and they'll take it, So, but it's not quite as fast. But once you get to where you can whip a plastic sword around pretty quick, you get a rattan sword, and you can make it fly. And that's what you're after, really.
Right. Do you use triggers or anything in your basket?
I never have. I remember when they came out and everybody's like, oh, yeah, put a trigger on. Off you go. And it's like, just hold on to it. Because when I was taught, they were like, hold on with these two fingers. And these were the ones we used, to manipulate. where your blade went. So, depending on how you squeeze it, and also too, you wanted to squeeze at the end. So, when you hit a guy, it would, all the force of your blow would go into your target as opposed to, bouncing into your hand and bouncing off into your stick. So you wanted to drive it into your opponent. But it like I say, it depends on the stick too. Like the plastic one, if you get it there and it's with sufficient speed, they're gonna take it more than likely. And if they're not, then you did get it good. Because it was something funky happened. If it's clean and it's there, you got it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I mean, I hit people with a chain sword, and, you're going real fast, but it'll bounce off, or anything will mess up the shot, or it'll skip, so it's just kind of a lot of hand control. But that's why I never really used the trigger, because I was always holding on anyway.
Right.
And it's like, I remember one time I went to the dock and they were checking grip sticks. And, and I'll bet you check all the rest of the fighters out there, but if you check some of these guys' grip sticks, it's pretty substantial, and substantially greater than most people. Because like when I squeezed that thing, they were kind of flipping out because they're going, oh my God, I think I squeezed, I don't know, 75 pounds or 80 pounds, 75, I think it's about 75 pounds. And I just never really thought anything about it because I just, what I did, I switched. But they were, the nurses were just like, wow, that's fun. I guess most people are, I don't know, 30, 40, I don't know, whatever it was. But it was just, and it was all from sword fighting, and it's like this muscle in my hand here. I've checked out all the boys over the years, and after they fought for a while, like this part of the webbing in their hand thickens up, and it's just, and their hand thickens up, and it's just from holding that sword and all the shock and, and hitting with it.
Yeah, I think if you look at any fighter's hands, their sword hand is always substantially wider and thicker than their shield hand.
Yeah, and but the boys used to give me a hard time about my right arm because it was like, I looked like the king crab. They said it's like, my right arm is, all cut up and everything and bigger, and they looked at my left arm, it was like this little piddle.
I like the king crab analogy. That's really cool. All right, so let's do the final 10 questions then. The first one, what event have you never gone to that you would like to go to?
Oh, what is that? I don't know. I'd like to go to Sport of Kings, but I wish I was younger, All these lads out there, it would be nice to be more competitive.
Okay. I don't think they're in as good a shape as you think, but maybe. If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
I could fight anybody. I don't know, because on one hand, it's like, do you want to fight your heroes, or do you want to? Because it's like I had some tremendous fights with Brian Tarragon and Michael of Bedford. It'd have to be one of those guys, I think, just because, we were all evenly matched, and it was like who was hot that day, and so it'd have to be either Michael of Bedford or Brian Tarragon.
Okay, cool. What's your favorite Estrella story?
The ones where we win. My favorite Estrella story. Well, I had one Estrella where I blew up my knee. That was pretty fun.
That was fun?
Like, in some ways, yeah. Because it's like, it was uh, God, it was the resurrection battle, and it was supposed to last an hour and a half, and so I sandbagged all my best guys. I had like 50, my 50 best essentially, and I'd let all the rest of the lads go out there, and waylay the bad guys, and then it was like, all right, let's go win this. So we're marching in, and we're battling, and it's like I whacked some guy in front of me, and my buddy to Llewellyn had whacked a guy next to me, and this guy fell down, and he kind of, it was like a little bit of a skill, and he rolls in, and essentially he clips, and I can hear my knee, going. I'm like, oh God, my knee, and so then it's like I try and hop up and fall, I fall on my back to get all the weight off my leg, and and I'm king at the time too, and one of the little medics comes running up, and she's like, oh my God, cut off your boot. I'm like, get away from my boot. I had it like, even this is probably 86, and even in back then, a pair of Charter Oaks, riding boots was $250. I'm like, get away from my boot. And she's like, oh no, we're going to cut it off. I'm like, get away from my boot. I will, and I'm about half hysterical because my knee's like, doing its thing with me, and finally, Dennis the Titan, he was my hero that day. Dennis comes up and he picks her up and he moves her to the side, and then he reaches down and he hooks my leg harder and he flips it around and he straps it back on and immobilizes my knee. And he's okay, transport him. And so then it's like, they literally stick me on a shield and they carry me off the field, and I see Brian Tarragon. I say, Brian Tarragon, come to me. And he comes running over. He's like, get your medicine. I said, avenge me.
Nice.
And oh my God, you saw this guy, get fangs and turn 10 feet tall. I was just like, oh, maybe I should have done that. He might hurt somebody. But, the boys went out there and they take me to the hospital and I think it was one of the emergency rooms. But anyway, they're taking my boot off, and I stuck my battle plan in my boot, and so it falls out. My buddy Marshall Eagleston, he's like reaching out, oh, holy relic, but he picked that up, and so they're like, yeah, your knee's pretty well hosed there, son. You're gonna have to go to. You have to go see your doc and all this. Well, they just stuck it in the immobilizer and shot me full of painkillers, but I didn't care. And so then they bring me in, they're in the middle of court, and they bring me in, like they're carrying me on a what do you call those things, a dais?
Yeah.
Anyway, so they come, and they're everybody's kind of looking at me like, really? God, this guy, you ruined him, and he still comes back. But, yeah, it was a good time. All the belly dancers would come up and dance at me that night. And, it wasn't too long to where I was out of gas anyway, because the pain or the shot wore off, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm done. But that was a good one. The first time we won the bridge battle, because Ty had always beat our ass in the bridge fight. We'd get out there and, they would every year. It didn't matter. We'd win, even if we'd win the war or whatever, it didn't matter. They'd beat our ass in the bridge fight every time. And they had, oh God, what's that guy's name? Casimir. Casimir was like the 7 foot tall, and no, you couldn't touch a guy, because he was just, his arms were as long as everybody else's legs. And he'd gank like 30 of my guys, 40 of my guys every bridge battle, and they'd win. And so finally one year I was like, what can I do about this? How can I? And I had this one guy on my side. He's a pretty good sized guy. I mean, he's probably 6'6", 6'7", about 400 pounds. And we call him Jeff the Giant. And Jeff, and he's like, oh, I'm done. I'm going back to Canada. I said, Jeff, just wait. And he's like, what? I said, dude, just wait. I said, look, you'll get to go out pretty quick. But I said, there's a guy on their team. And, and I explained who Kaz was and, what he did and everything. He's like, okay. I said, all I really want you to do is just run over there and bear hug him and jump off the bridge with him. And he's like, really? said, yeah, because this guy just kicks our ass every year. And so he's like, oh, okay. And so, we get out there, and, the lions, they always sit in the bridge fight, and then they kind of everything stabilizes, and the bad guys start stabbing each other. And so, we're doing it, and, Cal's waved in, like, okay, here it comes, And, I'm just watching this, like, here comes the beatdown. And so I kind of signal Jeff. It's like, okay, Jeff, he's right there. You see him? Yeah, oh, yeah, I got this. So I have the lion surge, and Jeff runs up in the middle of the surge, and literally he just bear hugs this dude and just jumps on. And, Cal died the hot death. As Jeff come walking back, I handed him a beer, and he went back to camp, and we managed to fight him down to the end, and we won the battle. That was the first time we'd ever won the battle, the bridge battle, and it was a pretty magic moment.
That's fun. That's super fun. All right. Fourth question: who are your favorite people to watch fight?
My favorite people who watch fight?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because all the marshals, they're really that's the spot, so to speak. If you're really into watching fighting, because you're 10 feet from the guy, if that, and it's the poor girls, they a lot of the people, they don't see it. So it's like I remember a lot of times standing on the sideline, and people are going, "What happened?" And it's like, "Well, he did this, and then he did that, and then he did this, and then he did that." And I'm like, "You saw that?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was a 4-shot combat, one." But all they saw, and that was the end of it. But it's once you get to a certain level in this, things will slow down for you. You can see everything that they're doing, and so it was always fun just explaining to people what just happened. Thinking, what do you do? What happened? It's like, okay, this and this and this and this, you'll be watching, you can tell it. It's like, oh, he's open. His legs open there. He's doing this. But, oh, he's tipping his shield down a little bit. It's like if the other guy sees it, he's going to hit him in the mouth. But I guess it'd probably be the girls, because you'll see the girls kind of doing this, especially if they're all into the crowd and whatnot, and they're all, But you want to see something funny. Like I remember years ago, we had a powder puff tournament, and all the girls dressed up in their boys' armor, and they went out and fought. And none of these girls had ever really fought before, but it was amazing because they all fought just like their boys. They lined up in the same stand. It was hysterical. And it's like my girl, she flaming through a flat top like nobody's business. Let me tell you, it was funny as hell. She's like, "Bow!" I'm like, I didn't know she had that in her, but look at that, But it was hysterical, and all, like I said, all the ladies, they fought like they're men. But yeah, it'd be the girls.
You watch it long enough, and you know what you have to do, even if you can't completely do it. Yeah. Do you have a hero? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just. I lost my train of thought now.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Do you have a hero in the SCA, and if so, who is it?
Well, it's like I told you at the beginning, my first hero was Duke Paul Bellatrix, and when I came down here, Deaton became one of my heroes, because man, I had to change my style of fighting because of him, because he was just too damn fast, flat out. You look at this guy and you're like, ready? Next thing you know, you've been hit in the head, and you're kind of leaning off to one side, and you're wondering, how the hell did that happen so quick? Then you start covering your head, and he smacks you in the ass, and you're like, man, it's like somebody lit that bad boy on fire, So then after a while, that's when I started doing this high guard, chicken guard thing, where it's like, okay, I got that one blocked and that one blocked. So now you got to come over this side. You got to come over the off side and get in the armpit or something. But yeah. And Dennis, Dennis is always, my strength coach. I mean, I spent more time in the gym with that guy. I mean, he's the main reason why I had as much success as I did, I think, just because he made me so strong. I mean, I was always fast, but when I got fast and strong, I went from about 100. I told him, I came up to him one day. I said, Dennis, I'm tired of being skinny. I weighed about 165 pounds, and I was just, nothing but Gristle and Tiger meat, but I was skinny. These big guys, they'd shove me around, and, slap me like, off with you, young man, and that was the end of it. And so I went to Dennis, and I was like, Dennis, I'm tired of being skinny. He said, we can fix that. He called his system Deathworks, immensity through intensity. Well, he wasn't lying either. And I went, from 165 pounds to about 190, and it was all muscle. And that's when I went from being good to really good. Because now it's like, the bigger guys would come in to shove you around, and they couldn't shove you. And, it's like I could peel a guy open, and, like you walk inside and you start opening them up, and next thing they're looking at you like this, like, whoa, how did I get here? Or they try and shove you, and I mean, my best set ever on the leg press machine, I did 3 sets of 5 with 1,420 pounds on it. I mean, I could pick up my truck. Literally. I remember one time I stuck my truck in, it was a fire press. I had a little Mazda pickup. I stuck the nose of my pickup in my parking spot that I wanted, and I just squatted it over. But it was just, I got that strong. And, and you get, the wife made a good comment too, to the women, and it's like, you know what? Probably Care Cherie, because that lady, she made it happen. A lot of stuff happened behind the scenes, and that's the whole thing. It's like, you see all these people out there in front of it, and Katie Callahan was another one that was always behind the scenes where you never really saw what was going on, but, if you were in the know, you knew she made it happen. And there's a lot of people like that out there where, you have heroes and sheroes.
Right.
And, it's the same with me, I mean, shoot, Helen Jeanette saved me in one of my reigns, because it was just, I was in the middle of a divorce, and I was, everything was just going to hell in a handbasket as far as I was concerned. And, I mean, I was still on the throne. So I'd be like, okay, you're going to this or that. I'd get a list. Here's your list. Here's the event. These are the letters that we've gotten for, awards for those. So here's your award. And I mean, I walked in there with a folder. I had all my scrolls. I had everything I needed. I always had an extra few, just because there's always somebody that needs, something at one of these things. So I always had a couple extra blank scrolls, and, we'd get somebody to fill them in. I mean, shoot, my chief lady in waiting, I made her she wasn't my lady in waiting. I made her one of my lords in lurking, just because, Zala was always, I don't know, it's like, she'd bail me out all the time, or, something would be going on, and next thing you know, you're going to be dull if you're off the camera. I got this hand, and you're off being fat, dumb, and happy, and you don't even realize what's going on, and next thing you know, you're like, wow, she saved me.
She made me look good. All right. What is your favorite medieval-esque or period movie?
Oh, favorite medieval movie. Robin and Marian's got to be in there. I were just crying. I mean, I understood why, but, because it came out, I think I was in high school when it came out. But I was just like, on one hand, I was mad that at the end when she poisoned it, but then again, is he ever going to have a better day? And so it's like, so that was always a good one. I mean, Excalibur is kind of tacky, but it was fun. Yeah, I love that armor. Geez, that stuff was shiny.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Oh,
and the Warlord for Charlton Heston. Man, that was a good movie too.
I'll have to look that one up. I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Oh man, it's something else.
Okay. What's your favorite tournament format?
Favorite tournament format would be single fight double elimination. And it's like, they have a lot of them now where it's, 2 out of 3 and whatnot. And man, some of these guys are good, and you can only trick them once. So I want to be able to trick them, win the fight, and get out. So I'd have to be single fight double elimination.
What's your favorite event? Estrella.
Without a doubt. Yeah, I remember me and Elric were at Atenveldt, and we're sitting in the Pittsburgh airport going, man, we need better war stuff. It was when it was out in the sandy desert. It was just kind of nasty. It needs to be funner. Let's put it that way. And so then we were like, you know what? What if we put it in at Estrella Park? We'll call it Estrella War. I mean, we thought it'd be funny because, Estrella War, Star Wars.
Right.
So that's what we did. And we were amazed because, we actually made money the first time, and there was over 1,000 people there, and it just blossomed from there, and so, and now, you look at it, it's like, I mean, it ebbs and flows anywhere, depending on what the weather's like and who's on the throne,
I love that you told the story of the name origin. That's really cool. If you could change one thing about the SCA, what would it be?
I've noticed over the years that they have made more rules, but they haven't gotten rid of any. So it's like, and I would get the corporate aspect out of it more. I mean, I understand that we have to have this because, we're, a multinational corporation and all, but I just don't think they should be involved in the everyday aspect of it. We've set it up to where the royals and whatnot can do enough to where they should be able to handle it. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't think we should have the corporation involved with the play as much.
Yeah, just simpler.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I grew up in too. I can remember being a kid hanging out with all the movers and shakers, because we're invisible when you're a kid, and, to hear them talking about, oh yeah, we just got our mail status, now we're was it a 501(c)(3) or something anyway, but basically they did it because we got a lower, bulk rate on our mail. They didn't care that we were a nonprofit educational. They just wanted to get a lower rate on the mail.
And it just sort of spiraled.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, once they come out there for people to strive for, they're like, oh, we can be on the board of directors and we can do all this stuff. And now we're perfect. Anyway, I digress.
Last question. Who is your favorite person to fight? You can name more than one person.
Probably Mark Newman. Mark Newman and Jonathan Christie White Wolf the Younger. Those two guys. I mean, we over the years we fight every night or every Wednesday, and then we go fight everybody else. But it's those two. Deaton was a lot of fun to fight too, but there were a couple times where he about half scared me to death. Oh shoot! I was fighting a great sword one time, and we both do this one move, and we come down, and it's like I thought mine slid off the side of the helmet, but he had a little bar sticking out, so it's like kind of sticking out to the side a little bit. But I hit it, and the bar went into his hand, and it stuck to his head. And I was just like, ooh, 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 you know, because I thought I'd stuck it into his head, you know, and I'm just having a fit. And he's like, what's wrong with his helmet? It's like, hold on. So I realized, you know, I went up there and, you know, I realized he's okay. So I was good with that. And I peeled this thing off and, you know, face, but oh my God, it scared me to death. But, yeah, you know, all the boys really, you know, because we fought so much, you know, and then once they got up to where they were competitive with me, they punished the rest of the other guys for the most part. So.
Well, thank you again so much for joining me tonight and telling us your stories. This has been great fun. So I really appreciate it, Your Grace.
Pleasure's been mine. You know, like I said, this worked out much better than I thought it would.
Well, I'm good that it was better than you thought it would be. That's a good thing.
Well, I watched a few of them, so I was like, oh, okay, you know. But like I said, at first I was kind of reticent, you know. When you guys sent me the email, hey, you want to do this? And I was like,
I'm a big softie.
So yeah, it all worked out good.
Yeah.
So it was fun, you know. I'm tripping down memory lane.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Tomorrow night I'm speaking with Duke Dog. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that, of the Middle. So that'll be interesting too. He's been King of the Middle quite a few times. So thank you again, Your Grace. I really appreciated talking to you tonight, and I'll see you all the next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.